on trying to just got started on trying to guitar pro the melody. So
Oh, okay.
that's an early work in progress
Okay.
on that. Still working on that. But on the playing it and all, uh, this is one of those songs where for me, putting the words in the right place in my head. Sometimes I can actually, you know, hum or mouth the words, but that timing element is really, that's a great challenge.
Yeah.
Um, and it's funny because I find myself unconsciously, if I'm not trying to do it, it actually sort of happens sometimes naturally,
Mhm.
which I suppose is, I suppose that's natural.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, but what it did do was it this particular song, and I went back and I was thinking about just other Beatles stuff. So Blackbird is in my I can play Blackbird sort of fingerpick most of Blackbird. Um, Norwegian Wood. I can, you know, I could refresh my memory on that. I think I fairly well and play that.
And you're picking out
Um,
the melody, picking out the melody as you strum it, right?
yeah, in Norwegian Wood, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and then, but what it made me want to do was add something else that is along the lines of "I'll be back," in the sense that it's from that Rubber Soul to uh,
Before the White Album kind of period of
Sergeant
kind
Pepper, kind of that sort of era.
Mhm.
Just add something on and just start working on something else.
Okay.
So that today I'm looking for suggestions, just
Oh, okay.
something new,
Yeah.
something that kind of
Yeah. Um, so in my life has a nice little intro, that little thing that I just did there. And then a pretty interesting, there's nothing else real challenging about it other than just kind of like strumming through the chords. But the chords are really neat. So it doesn't have a lot of fancy picking in it, but it's a really neat progression, and it does have that little thing in there. Um, there's boy, there's some great ones from Help too. Well, that's where I Need You is from, uh,
yeah.
and even just strumming through the chord progression to Help is really neat. I mean, it's got oh, and then there's a really hard lick, guitar lick. There's this little thing that George whips out there that is really difficult to do at the speed that it
Yeah.
happens in.
It's
Um, but let me grab. Oh, let me just look through my iTunes here and see if something else jumps out at me. Did we do You've Got to Hide Your Love Away?
It's a 6/8 time, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So it has a nice little lick there that we play. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a fast three, or fast 6/8 or 12/8. It doesn't really matter how we think about it, but it's kind of like Norwegian wood. It's basically the same rhythm, but quite fast as far as keeping that going, keeping that,
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
you know? With some interesting chords because what happens is they're all most of them is just it's this G and it keeps this high G on all of the chords in the main part. So it goes from G to D, and keeping that note on, keeping that G on makes it a sus4, right? Then it goes to a little F, keeping that same finger, keeping your little finger there. So this becomes some of the challenge in this is your little finger has to just stay down while you do all these changes.
Yeah.
And so what would we call this chord?
Okay. Let's see here. This is so we're up here with little G on an F shape. F at 9.
Yeah, way to go.
Yeah.
Okay, a gold star on my computer for you.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so all the Fs are played with as F add nines, and then it goes to C, keeping that high note on. Does that change anything?
C, keeping that on would be C with a G. We already have one right there.
So, what does that tell us?
That tells us that we're adding something because we're all the way around. No,
Because we already have that, right?
right? We already have it.
So there's no different name for this chord. This is still just C.
Let's just see. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So duplicating something we already have doesn't affect it. So this is just a different voicing of C,
Okay.
right? And if you think about it, if you were to play the C as a bar out of the A family, we've got this G in it there anyway,
Aha. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so we don't need we don't generally have names to designate particular voicings of chords. Like got to make sure you play this chord out of the E family as a bar wherever it is, or you can play it open, or you can play it out of the A family or whatever. You know, um, but many times that's really important in guitar playing because if you want the sound of what you heard on the record, you gotta have the right shape of the chord or the right voicing of the chord, the right layout.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
You would put this in the music though. You would
right,
if
right,
you yeah if you were
yeah.
tabbing this or putting it
Yeah,
in music.
yeah, or even if you were just drawing a diagram of it, this is how we're going to play the C. In this case, we're going to play this. It's the same thing as really the difference between this G, if we play the G with both notes up here, or not. Except that usually, a lot of times we do designate this G as something different, because really we don't really hear the B here on the fifth string, and it's even better not to have it usually. Usually to have that string dead is better than hearing this, but not better, but it's different. And so if we're not hearing the B, then we have a chord without a third.
Right.
And we do designate that usually with what how do we label chords without thirds? Sometimes, you know what, in Guitar Pro, it'll say G no third. It'll put no third in parentheses if you do that. But there's a little more colloquial way of naming a chord without a third.
So it's just the first and the fifth. Um, is that a power chord?
Yeah. Okay. And then the way we designate that in music sometimes, like if I'm writing out a song for a beginning student and it's nothing but power chords, which are usually going to be shaped like this, and they're just going to move around the neck, the root here and the fifth here. Like,
Right.
I've got a beginning student working on Smoke on the Water, and I've got him doing this. So it's
Okay.
just this little series of power chords. But many times in writing, in notation, we call that a five chord, like G5. Because we don't really use the designation five for anything else. Like it's not reserved for,
Oh,
um,
okay.
you
Yeah.
know, so that, but that's what I mean. That's a little bit more informal. There's, an informal way of designating a power chord is
Right.
just calling it a five chord. Okay.
Right. And just on that subject though, why are they called power chords? What?
Okay, I'm glad you asked me that. Goes back to the early 60s when there were bands like Led Zeppelin, The Who, although this is mid 60s, Cream, even, that, were these hard rock bands. Cream is like the perfect example because they became known as power trios because they played this heavy stuff with just basically a guitar, a bass, and drums.
Right.
And even Led Zeppelin and The Who fall in this category, but they had like a separate singer. So it was really a three musicians, three instrumentalists, let's say, and a vocalist. In the case of Cream, it was still just the three guys. It was Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker and Clapton, and they played these heavy songs. It's like heavy metal. The term heavy metal hadn't been coined yet. Hard rock had not even really been coined. But these bands became known as power trios because they were playing powerful stuff. Well, a lot of times that powerful stuff was created because the guitar player and the bass player were playing the same thing. The guitar player playing it with these five chords, and the bass player playing the lower note, the root of those chords, lower. Perfect example is things like. Okay, the guitar. That's kind of a hybrid thing because the bass player would play these notes an octave lower. A whole lot anyway. And the guitar player sometimes would play them like this, or would play at least higher versions of the chords. Like what Eric did in that was really this. Playing the guitar part higher. Anyway, so as these bands became known as power trios, the style of chords they played got the moniker power chords.
Okay.
Yeah, so it just sort of evolved in the late and early '60s, and then heavier bands came along. Black Sabbath, and in the mid '70s, AC/DC, and some of those that all sort of picked up that. Oh man, and Iron Butterfly.
Oh yeah.
They were sort of borrowing their name from the Led Zeppelin philosophy of call yourself, something light and heavy at the same time, yeah, so, and they were a little bit more, they fell into kind of what became known as the psychedelic era too, because of some of their songs and the lyric content of the lyrics and things, and then of course they had their long Inagata Davida thing that became a classic,
Right.
an FM staple back in those days,
Right. Right. Right.
So anyway, so that's why they're called power chords, or that's how they became known as power chords.
Okay. So Clapton, who obviously has a much broader range than power chords at all.
Sure.
But when he was playing those power chords with Cream, or even before that, he wasn't thinking of those as per se power chords. That was just
Yeah.
stylistically what was working for the songs they wanted to play, or
Yeah. It was almost like he was really just adding harmony to the riff. The riff would, by adding a fifth to it. Instead of just playing the one note, he's playing a root and a fifth. And the thing that's kind of cool about, well, what power chords allow you to do is really play kind of a melody, but you don't have to worry about whether the chord should be major or minor. So so well, like even here in Smoke on the Water, which goes from G to B flat to C. If I put all those as major chords, first of all, in the key of G, B flat's not even a note in the key, right? And so we're already using a bluesy note, or a blue note technically, that creates this bluesy sound by going from one to a flatted third, and then to four. But if I played all those as major chords, it doesn't have anywhere near the drive and the power of just the bass.
Yeah.
Now here's an example of a song that you might remember that uses a similar progression. It goes from G to B flat, which already sounds weird when you hear a G chord go to a B flat chord. Part of it is we've got a B natural in a G chord. So we've already heard the major third of the key, and now we're hearing a flatted third, and then it goes to C, and then it goes to D. So it uses four major chords in a row where the B flat is kind of the outlier, to, borrow your term from earlier today. But a song that does that, always hanging around. Moody Richard was the biggest square in town. So this is a really kind of bizarre chord progression, just because of using B flat, C, and D as three consecutive chords. And then it gets even weirder, because we're in the key of G sort of, but the B flat is the renegade. So E minor would be a normal chord in this key. But what it does before that, it goes to C minor. So we hear this chord and this chord next to each other. And this is the part that goes, he was an innocent bystander, watching his time go by. Just an innocent bystander, doesn't your time fly by? Anyway, really cool tune. Moody Richard, Dan Hicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hicks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, how did we get there?
We were talking about You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, and while we've been doing that, I also thought about another song that everybody should know. So we'll talk about maybe both of these. And did we ever talk about While My Guitar Gently Weeps?
I threw up this morning.
Uh-oh. Did you take a COVID test?
Mm-hmm. And I feel totally fine now, but they had to send me home because I threw up.
Okay. Too much drinking last night?
No, I didn't drink anything last night.
Eek. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then don't get near me.
Well, I feel fine now.
Okay. My daughter that lives here, as you've probably gathered, got sent home from school. She's a teacher, right? Because she barfed at school.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
That's
well. Yeah.
While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I don't think we've ever.
I don't think we've talked about it.
We've talked about that.
It is a really fascinating chord progression with with some kind of specific things that you want to do down here. Just listen to this for a second before you see what I do, and tell me what you hear.
Okay.
What chord do you think this is? or first, what type of chord does it sound like?
Minor chord.
Okay, and so what are some of the logical choices?
Well, E minor, A minor. Um, Sounds like it's closer to A minor than E minor.
Okay,
Um,
play an A minor, see what you think.
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. And then what happened in this line, in these four measures?
Okay. So we're descending the bass um, throughout those four.
Okay, so what do you think the second bass note was? Or just find it. It's got to be lower than A, right? I mean, we hear the A in the first measure.
That might be it.
That might be it.
Yeah. It's F sharp.
F sharp.
Yeah, it's F sharp.
Go from the beginning. The beginning again.
So that was. It doesn't end on E though. It ends on G or F. It ends on F.
Right, right. So it only got to F. It didn't. Yeah. So and notice I'm muting it. I'm muting those bass notes down here,
Yeah.
and the chord is not really changing. So we've got A minor, then with G in the bass, then basically with F sharp in the bass. But since we're going to move our second finger to F sharp. That's going to leave the fourth string open. We don't need to recover the fourth string. So we'll get back to this in just a second because I'm going to ask you to name that chord for me in just a second, okay? Because we can't quite call it just A minor with F sharp in the bass because of this note, because of the open fourth string, okay? And then it does just go to F afterwards. It goes to a big full F there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then, so try that. Run through those four chords.
Okay. So it's okay. Oh, no, we can't do that.
All right, you got to use your little finger for that one.
We go here. Yeah. Okay. 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 Oh, and then the full deal.
Yeah. Careful.
That didn't sound good.
That's better. Yeah. Now, the secret to muting these notes with your palm is you're barely touching the strings right at the bridge. Have we talked about this in any song at all?
Yeah, we did something recently. Neil Young.
We didn't do Cowgirl in the Sand, did we?
Did we do with Old Man?
Did we do Heart of Gold this way? Did we talk about Heart of Gold? Because that one does it too. Old Man, we might have done it a little bit in Old Man. Yeah, I think we did. Right, so really, really it's this part of your hand really laying on the saddle more or touching the saddle. Like right there when you were doing it, you were too far up here, so you could hear that when you muted it, it killed it completely or not at all. You've got to find the right, the right touch right here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you try to do it not having your hand rest there, but like coming in and pounding on it too from out of space.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Almost like this part needs this part.
Yeah.
But you mute the bass through the whole chord.
No, so then when you strum and really then aim for the higher strings on the strum, try not to hit the bass again so that you hear this kind of smoothly. That you don't hear that part of the strum, so you hear and see those two bass note, that second bass note is still just laying underneath the whole thing.
Right. Right. Okay. 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 You reached over and did that on the F there.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a place where you could play the F as a with your thumb if you want. We don't necessarily want a major seven there, so we don't if we don't want the first string open.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of times I would do it that way, and a lot of people would even use their thumb on this for the F sharp, and for the F as well. I generally don't for that third chord, but then I will sometimes. Kind of depends on the position I had my guitar in. Like right there, I had it not in very good position. I had the neck way out here, a little closer to you, and
Yeah.
so that made the bar was going to be tougher. If I was sitting better, it'd be easier to get the bar.
Yeah. Okay. 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 So, okay. Okay.
Yeah, all eighth notes are there. You want down, up for the second half of the measure.
Okay.
Yeah, start again. Make sure you got the whole A minor on.
Yeah, I got the whole deal here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. But that-
And again, you're going to hit those two bass notes first, so you got plenty of time to get the bar on and be playing it while you take your time with the other notes.
Oh.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
You mean,
In other words, since the first thing you're going to do on the F is hit this bass note, there's
oh,
no reason to wait on that while these aren't on yet.
got it. Got it.
You know, so
Okay.
you got to just keep moving through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, so we were here. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Then it must just go around again.
Yeah, kind of. I'm gonna get to that in just a second. So, um, so we're in the key of A minor. This whole thing's revolving around A minor, and when you kind of assumed that it was going to get down to E, we kind of expect to see an E chord in the key of A minor because it would be chord 5. It would be our dominant chord,
Uh-huh.
right? And in a minor key, I'm not sure how far we've gotten into this. The first thing is the key of A minor is, of course, relative to what major key?
C.
So all the chords in the key of C are in the key of A minor. Um, Now, we played one of these chords that included a note not in the key of C already. Which bass note was that that's not in this key?
The F sharp.
Right, okay. And so in a minor key, you have two additional notes that are used really commonly in the scale other than just the 7 ones that are in the relative major scale. Okay, we haven't gone very far into this, right?
No.
Okay. Um, so I mentioned a minute ago that an E chord, which in the key of C would be E minor,
Right.
right? In a minor key, in the relative minor key, we usually alter that chord to have it be a major chord or even a 7th chord to be a dominant chord so that it's acting as it's got the same strong pull back to A minor
Mhm.
that we have in a major key by having a 7th chord on step 5.
Okay.
So what note had to get changed? What note is in E that isn't in the key of C, in E major?
Oh, what note? Well, it's
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where?
Which would be what step of our A minor scale?
See, now I gotta, okay. How does facile on this? That would be 7.
Right. Okay. So, um, a brief. Hey, do you have a book called the Guitar Handbook? Have we ever talked about this?
I think we've talked about it, but no, I don't.
Okay. It'd be worth getting just to have as a, Amazon has it. It's the guy's name I think is Ralph Denyer, Denyer. And it's got a blue and white cover, but it's just called the Guitar Handbook. I'm pretty sure that's the spelling of his last name. But if you look something up and you're confused, send me the link and I'll let you know whether it's the right one. But and it's around $25. It's it's got a ton of good information in it. A lot of it is really hard to decipher. You can't just read it like a novel. It's more like a reference thing. But a lot of things that it refers to, it has little biographies of great guitar players and history of different kinds of guitars, but has a whole bunch of chapters on music theory and stuff too that talks about modes and scales and things like that. So it'd be a good reference to have around on your coffee table or nightstand or something.
Okay.
But, okay, so a quick rundown of a minor scale. What we call the natural minor scale just plays the same notes as the relative major scale. Here's my C scale. Here's my A minor scale. All natural notes. What's missing in a minor scale is one of the things that makes a major scale sound so complete when you finish it is the half step from 7 to 8. The seventh note is called the leading tone, and once you get there, you can't stop. I mean, it's dying to get there. In a minor scale, it doesn't have that pull. That whole step from G to A doesn't have the power that the half step did in the major scale. So that G is frequently raised to G sharp to create exactly that. And now you can hear there's that same tension and pull. We've now made a leading tone. So the term leading tone means a half step away from the note it wants to resolve to.
Okay.
And that's what we call step 7 of a major scale. A minor scale doesn't have that because it's a whole step, unless we do that, unless we alter that G to G sharp. Well, what that does as far as the chords go, is it also takes chord 5, the E chord, and makes it a major chord, which is what we want as a and we could always make it a 7th chord by adding the D, and that gets us this dominant 7th sound, pulling us really strongly back to chord 1.
Back to chord 1.
Okay? So that's one of 2 notes that are frequently altered in a minor scale. And that actually means that both chords, E minor is still okay, because the note G and G sharp are both okay in the key of A minor.
Yeah.
Okay? Because earlier in this progression we played a G chord. So we used the G, and then when we get to the E chord, we're using G sharp.
Right.
Well, we also saw an F sharp in the bass here at one point, and to really quickly go over this, because I want to get, this scale that I just played using the G sharp is what we call a harmonic minor scale. It changes the G to G sharp. So you may have even heard this or read about it. There are basically 3 forms of a minor scale. There's the natural minor scale that is just the same as the major. Then by raising the 7th, we create what's called the harmonic minor scale. Now it has a problem in it. At one point it goes from F to G sharp. It has a 1.5 step jump in it. And when I play that descending, that's really weird sounding. And so over years, it evolved into having the F be raised as well to F sharp, so that we don't have that 1.5 step jump. And now it sounds like this. Well, the end of that sounds great. It sounds great because it's the same as a major scale now. It's got an F sharp and a G sharp in there. So if I play that down, it just sounds like one of those notes was wrong. You think you're hearing a major scale.
Right.
And then it gets to the 3rd note on the way down, and it's like, you can't, that's not the right note. You want to hear this. Right? So when that scale is played, so usually those 2 raised notes are only used when you're trying to get up to A. And if you're coming down away from the A, you don't play them. You go back to the natural minor scale. So this is what's called the melodic minor scale. It's different going up than it is going down. So going up, it uses the two sharps, and then going down, back to naturals, G, A, G, F. So it really means we have 9 notes in this scale.
Okay. And so that scale then, when it's incorporated into the music you're playing, depends on which direction you're going for the next note.
Yeah, basically, yeah, and it's not always used that way, but that's kind of how it evolved. But
Okay.
but what's evolved even further now is it really means that any chord that has either the F, the 6th note of the scale in it, or the G, the 7th note, has 2 possibilities for the chord that could be there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And since those are notes 6 and 7, one of those is in every chord except chord 1. We recently kind of talked about what steps of the scale are in what chords. Chord
Yeah.
1 is only 1, 3, and 5. Well, as soon as we get to chord 2, note 6 is in chord 2.
Yeah.
And then we get to chord 3, note 7's in that. So actually 6 of the 7 chords in the key are affected by one of those 2 notes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? Follow the math there so far?
Yep. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why we can go to a G chord at one point and then an E chord at another because of the G sharp.
Yeah.
Why we can have an F sharp in the bass over what really amounts to being a form of a D chord. I was going to have you figure that one out, but we'll skip that for now because we got on to something more important. But basically, this is a form of a D chord. It's basically a D7 type chord
Yeah.
with F sharp in the bass.
Okay.
But it also has an E in it, which would make it a ninth in D. Since it's already D7, so we really have 5 notes in this chord. So it ends up being D9 with F sharp in the bass. If we needed to,
Right.
accurately label it, right?
Kate there. Yeah.
Yeah. But what that really means is that, so for example, the 2 main chords that this affects are chords 4 and 5. Because in A minor, chord 4 would be D minor, but we're saying now we could use a major chord there. Okay, great. And chord 5 should be E minor if we're just using the natural scale, but it can be major as well. So we actually have 5 major chords that could be played in this key because we've got the other 3 major chords that are all from the key of C,
Okay.
which
Right.
are C, F, and G.
Right.
So not only do we have C, F, and G in the key of A minor, we have D major and E major too. And I've talked about Al Stewart before, my favorite songwriter and stuff. He has a song that is a great example of this. I'll play a little of it, called Fields of France. It's from an album called Last Days of the Century. And it goes from A minor to D to E, then A minor, G, F, C, E, A minor. Now it's a beautiful melody. Go try it again. And so that was A minor, D to E, A minor, G, F, C, E. You should look this song up and listen to it, or I should send you a link to it. Fields of France by Al Stewart. And the lyrics, he did an album. Oh, this was not from that album. He had an album called Last Days. I mean, this was called for Last Days of the Century. He had an album called Between the Wars that came out in the mid 90s that had songs kind of related to just life all over the world between World War I and World War II. It's got a song about Charles Lindbergh, a song about it's called Marion the Chatelaine, who was Hearst's Marion Davies. A song about Hearst's
Right.
mistress, and anyway, a song about Lindbergh, a song, a really spooky one called Laughing into 1939. It's, just about how life is about to change. And anyway, So that album's called Between the Wars, fabulous tune. But this one's called Fields of France, and it's about a World War I fighter pilot about to go out for what he doesn't know is his last mission. You know,
Oh,
yeah. And so anyway, look that up. Fields of France, Al Stewart. Okay, enough of my Al speech. Um, yeah, and actually, it's a song that actually had a lot to do with me getting to know Al better because the first time he agreed to do a concert with me, he I told him I'd played some of his songs that he doesn't play very often because they're like piano songs and he doesn't travel with a piano player. And he said, "Oh, like what?" And I said, "Oh, like Fields of France. I played on the guitar." And he goes, "Really? You can do?" And so I sent him a recording of what I had done on the guitar, and he says, "Okay, we'll play that at the show." And this is like just a few days before we played together. And first I'd only spoken to him on the phone like a week before the show, even though this thing was booked months in advance. So it sort of got me in good with Al that we did. So
yeah.
every time I played with him any place, we always did Fields of France, and he would never do it any other time because he didn't have anybody else that could play it. So anyway, okay, I got to wrap this story up. But the second part of the progression, and you can check my lesson on this,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because what happens in the second time through the progression, it has the same bass notes, but not just bass notes for the chords now. Now it goes to real chords. So it goes from A minor. So for our first line, we got A minor with G in the bass, F sharp in the bass, that really is a type of D chord, and then F. Second time around, it's A minor to a full G chord, to a full D chord that would be the same as having, we don't need the F sharp in the bass, but they use the D chord in the same spot where it was in the first line.
Mhm.
Third measure, and then lands on 5 finally. So now we're 8 measures in, and now it comes to like a little cadence, what's called a half cadence, meaning not resolved on 1. It's hanging on 5 to kick us. It's almost like a turnaround. It's getting us back to the beginning.
Yep.
Third line is the same as the first with the descending bass line with the G in the bass, the F sharp in the bass, and the F. And the fourth line starts off the same way as the second line, A minor to G, and then instead of going to D, goes to C. And you can hear that's got an interesting resolution, because that's our relative major key, and it almost sounds like it could have stopped there, but it doesn't. He goes back to the dominant chord, to E, in order to change keys to the other key that is not A minor, that has E as the dominant chord. Now, this may seem like a trick question. What key other than A minor has E as chord 5?
Hey.
Good. Okay. I could send you down a rabbit hole with that. That's like, wow, how could it? Okay, it goes into the key of A major, and the whole second section is all chords in the key of A, and then it goes to chord 3. I don't know. So what would be 3 in A?
C minor,
Almost.
C sharp minor.
C sharp minor. So it goes to C sharp minor.
Yeah.
Then it goes to 6.
Which is going to be G.
No, not quite.
F.
Oh, you're getting warm.
It's D.
No, no, no. No,
No,
we're talking
where are we?
6 is 6 in a major key. We're in the key of A major.
Right. And we're looking for 6, and how come I'm flaming out on this?
What's 5 in A?
5 in A is E.
So 6 would be
6 is going to be F.
almost.
F sharp.
Now you're getting really warm.
F sharp minor.
Yeah.
That took too long.
Yeah. And don't play a B minor. Wait, I think I see a B minor on the horizon.
Oh yeah, that took too long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to use actually all 3 minor chords now in the key of A. And I'll let you just look this up loud, or you could even just try to figure it out now by ear. But I'll run through it once. It goes from 1, 3, 6, back to 3, 2, B minor, and finally to 5. So it keeps using chord 5 as its like landing point, which allows it to change keys, at will almost.
Okay.
So the two sections in this song, one's in A minor and one's in A major. And the A major section, like everything in the key of A, has 3 bar chords in it because the 3 minor chords in A are all bars.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So a much bigger project than You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. But if you want to take a look at the lesson on You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, you could too.
Yeah.
But I think there's While My Guitar Gently Weeps is a much meatier thing, and the theory behind it and all that other stuff is
Yeah. Okay.
really cool. So
All right.
yeah. So.
Cool. Okay. That got lots of good stuff to work on here. Okay. All right. Well, that'll keep you busy till next week.
Okay. Good.
More, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Good. I'll next week. Everything okay for you for next Thursday?
I think so. Actually.